culture is such a big part of what we do and is such a big part of the success of any organization. And, that translates to whether you're a nonprofit, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in the corporate world or not. Culture makes the difference in whether people want to work for you, whether they want to buy from you, the
Mm.
kind of experiences that they have, and whether they stay with you over the long term.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 203 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Today, I get to bring you Chellie Phillips. Now, this is a woman who has dedicated her life to understanding leadership and company culture. Now, at first, this sounds like, oh my gosh, I think we're at a corporate retreat and we're going to talk about company culture, right? Like this is when big organizations come up with their mission statement and our value statement and who we are in the world and all that kind of jazz. This time, we've kind of cracked the code on something new. Rather, Chellie has cracked the code on something new. And I'm really excited for you to listen in on what she has started to notice is working inside of culture. And the culture isn't just about corporate culture. It's also about family culture, how you decide to cultivate your friendships, right? It's even in the word. And I love this idea that we have a little bit more control over where we feel we belong, and understanding that knowing where we belong is really, really important to our personal happiness. And I hope you listen in for that part because I do think it's something we miss, especially when we're talking about our professions, right? We're talking about what we do for a living and I'm so cool and I do all the things. But there's something really important about who's in the sandbox with us. Something I love to say to my clients, like, listen, you need more playmates in your sandbox. And I think the way that Chellie goes about articulating what's important inside company culture and how we can create that is so important to understanding our own motivation, to understanding what happens outside in the world when we decide to create something and share it. The culture in which we do that really matters. So I hope you listen in for that in today's conversation. Chellie Phillips is a sweet tea-sipping, sassy Southerner with a passion for helping dynamic, career-minded professionals stand out for all the right reasons. She's a coach, a corporate trainer, and a motivational speaker, as well as the international best-selling author of 3 books, Culture Secrets, Secrets Leaders Use to Build Value, and When in Doubt, Delete It. She is the host of the exciting podcast, Culture Secrets. As you can tell, Chellie has spent her entire life understanding, creating, designing, and motivating others using culture. All right, you guys, you are going to love this interview. Go ahead and pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Chellie, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I'm so happy you're here today. I'm excited to dive in and talk to you.
Me too, Sarah. I can't wait to get started chatting.
I love it. I know we actually met a while ago. You guys, this is like the story for the ages. Things go into spam, things happen there, everything happens. And then of course we line up and get to talk to each other at the perfect moment. I love it. I love it. So Chellie, tell all of the Game On Girlfriends, what is it that you do?
So I wear 2 hats. I mean, we all wear multiple hats, right? So I still work a corporate job, 8 to 5, where I'm the VP of Communications and PR for a utility in South Georgia. And on the side, I run my own business. And in that, it's called Successfully Ever After. And I'm able to help people, what I say, become irresistible in the workplace. And that's either the person themselves looking for their perfect career, their next step, whatever that is in life is throwing at them and how they're navigating it. Or for the business owner, how do you attract the right people to your organization so that you and the employees both thrive and succeed?
I love that. Yeah, we have a lot of business owners listening too that are just on that cusp of like, how am I creating my company culture? What do I do? How is this even a thing? And so I think it's going to be really helpful for them. And in your experience, Chellie, with everything that you've done in your life, all of the different avenues that you could have gone down, the fact that you're wearing the 2 huge hats right now, why is this what you do? Like, what is it about this conversation about culture, this idea that we can actually create something here? What is it about this that you just love?
So there's 2 reasons I really got started doing this. First is I had a really sucky boss. And that came after a boss that I had loved for years retired and the organization transitioned when someone else new came in. I felt devalued. I felt like my skills weren't appreciated anymore. I felt like I didn't have a seat at the table or
Mm,
that someone wasn't recognizing what I could add to the organization anymore. And after 20 years being with that organization, it was kind of that kick in the pants moment where it was like, do I stay here? I'm vested in all the retirements and the programs, and I've grown up with these people basically throughout my career. And what do I do? Do I make that move? Do I have the courage to see what else is out there and take that opportunity? And then the other side of that is during that time, I also volunteered with a national sorority on a campus at a college campus. And I was seeing more and more of our women walk across stage, get their diploma, and then not necessarily get an offer in their field and take what I call a get by job. Like, I just got to pay the bills. I got to do something until I can find what I'm going to do.
mm,
And as they were getting those offers later on, they were coming in five to $8,000 less than what their counterparts who
yeah.
received the offer when they graduated were getting. And I'm like, this makes absolutely no sense because now you have actual real world work experience. You've shown up, you've worked with other people, you've engaged with clients and customers, you've shown that you're dependable, that you can actually punch a clock and be there when you need to be there,
Yeah.
and for some reason, employers were devaluing their real world experience because it took 6, 8 months to find that actual career in the field that I wanted to be in.
Mm,
And so working with the leaders of that organization, it really solidified in my mind, that we are our best assets and no one's going to pay you what you think you're worth, only what they think you're worth. And so it's up to us to be able to control that narrative and set ourselves up for the best fit for whatever that career is that we want to be. So those two reasons together are why I started what I started.
wow. Yeah, I mean, there's so much in that too. I think we could talk about that for about 3.5 days. But there's like so much in there. I love the idea that people don't always understand why they get paid what they get paid. And I think it's because we either think that we're just supposed to take what we get and that that's the rule somehow, right? Like it's like, but why? I don't know, but that's just the rule. There's sort of that feeling about it.
Mhm.
But I think there's also this idea that if we ask for more, whether we own our own business or we're getting paid by somebody else directly as an employee, that we don't know enough to be able to ask for more. We don't have enough experience. We don't have enough know-how. We don't get the system. Like there's kind of that feeling like, oh, I don't get how business works. I hear that all the time from people. Well, but I don't get it. Like, how can I just charge more? Or how could I just ask for more? And I think this is such a needed conversation for so many of us to understand what the perceptions are
Mhm.
and what the understanding of our own value is inside of that conversation, and that it's not a one-way street. And the more we see value in ourselves, the more people will see value in us.
Yeah, one of the things that especially working with the young professional group, those that are, 25 and under, maybe just starting out, is one thing I really noticed with them is that they haven't taken the time to do the research.
Mm,
They don't really know what a position in that field is actually worth. And then those of us that have been in the careers longer, you come in and every raise you get is based on what you started at. You get the usual 3% or you get a, 2%, or maybe you get a 5% if it was a great year, or whatever. And we don't really keep up with that either. Like, we're not really seeing what are these skills being valued for now in today's marketplace,
oh,
not
that's
when I came in 10, 15 years ago, but what is it now?
mm,
And developing that confidence and that assurity in what we bring to the table and how we're contributing and how we're adding to the success of that organization is so vital in being able to position ourselves in a way that we can feel comfortable going ask for it. And a lot of women are brought up where, you take what you're offered. You don't go rock the boat. You don't walk in someplace and say, I want more, 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 like Miss Moore on the commercial that I see now or whatever. And so it can be a little unnerving for people,
mm,
especially if they're not, maybe they're not the most comfortable having those conversations, or maybe they're more introverted and they feel like somebody needs to come to me instead of me go to them.
yeah.
But there's so many ways that we can work through that and around it. And when you have the basic knowledge and you've done the research and you've prepared for it, it makes it so much easier and your case so much stronger when you actually do have that conversation with someone who can, bring out the checkbook and make it right.
Yeah, make it right is the point too. But I
Hmm.
really love what you're saying. And I think this is important both for those who are in an organization and those who run a business, is making sure you're keeping track of what that positions actually getting paid. Right. And I run into this a lot with business owners who've been in business for years and years and years. And I'm like, you've never raised your prices. I was like, holy cannoli, we got to look at what somebody who started today would be charging. And I think it's very similar in corporate. I've seen that happen so many times. And this is why the entry point salary is so critical. And people miss that all the time. Like, well, I didn't
Yeah.
want to push. It's like, oh my gosh, by the end of the game, you've thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars different because that initial salary wasn't where it could have been. And seeing that is just, it's heartbreaking, but I'm so glad we're talking about it. So anyone listening can actually start to dig in and do that research. I think that's critical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah. And Chellie, I know recently you've had some massive success around your most recent, it's your third book, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So exciting. So tell us about this. Give us the name of the book. I'll make sure we're linked to it in the show notes or underneath this video if you're watching on YouTube, guys. But fill us in. What is the name of the book? And talk about the success of this book. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, so Culture Secrets is the name of it, and it's secrets leaders can use to build a value culture. And value is an acronym that I use to describe what great culture in the workplace is like.
Mm.
And what I really loved about putting this project together is not only do I use it in real life, because like I said, I still work my corporate job and I lead a professional development program inside that organization, but doing the research for it, being able to talk to some of the people I talk to, culture is such a big part of what we do and is such a big part of the success of any organization. And that translates to whether you're a nonprofit, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in the corporate world or not. Culture makes the difference in whether people want to work for you, whether they want to buy from you,
Mm.
the kind of experiences that they have, and whether they stay with you over the long term.
Yeah.
And so being able to put it together, what I did is after I interviewed several people is that I realized what's working kind of falls into 5 buckets, and that's where the value acronym came from. So it's value and vision. A is for accountability, then there's the leadership part, then there's the U, that's the uniqueness of the people that you have inside that organization, and
Oh.
then the engagement that you grow and that you keep so that it's sustainable over the years that you come.
Mm.
And so I think it's just really timely in today's world. Is why it's been so successful right now with us coming out post COVID and everybody back to work. There were so many hybrid or virtual. People felt like culture was lost in the workplace. And doing the research, the number one thing that I found is that what makes people want to show up at work, why they want to stay where they are, is because they feel like they belong and they
Mm.
contribute to the success of an organization. And culture is what creates that sense of belonging and that sense of value that someone feels inside that organization.
Oh, I love that so much. I think there's so much in there that speaks to our human natures. No wonder this book has done so well. I'm so happy. I think you hit number one in 9 business categories. Yeah.
Yeah, went
Come
international
on.
bestseller in 3 countries and then hit number 1 in 9 business categories and everywhere from management styles to motivation to so like it touched so many topics.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, it was just a form of motivation or something like that. It was like it really got down to the nitty-gritty because people can see the financial impact that also having a great culture can have, or it can help, in the HR side for retaining and attracting the right talent, or, you know, in a leadership style division, like how do I lead my teams and how do I grow them and how do I make them more productive and all these kind of things. So it really fit in a lot of areas. And I think, getting that kind of news and seeing the success it had really solidified to me the fact that, yes, this message is on point and it matters broad spectrum across the business community. Like there's so many people that can actually benefit from it. And, I say secrets that leaders can use. And I always remind people that leader doesn't mean CEO.
Right.
Leader doesn't mean I have to be sitting in a corner office. Leader is taking action. So you can do that in a cubicle. You can do that in an office. You can use that in a corner office, or you can use that at home with your family because there are cultures in our families too.
Yeah.
And these same attributes carry over to whether we're successful at work and in our family lives too.
Yeah. No, I absolutely get that. And I was going to say before I got so excited about the fact that you're number one in 9 categories is I think the reason it's done so well, Chellie, is because I can absolutely get the financial impact of that, right? Hiring and firing people is like one of the most expensive line items for any business. It's so expensive to hire the wrong person, have to remove them, look for a new person. It's just crazy how much that costs. So I get the financial piece in 2 seconds.
Mhm.
And I
I
think,
heard
yeah, go ahead.
I should say I heard it was like 8 months of someone's salary is basically what you're taking from the time that you have to replace that person, then train them, then get them up to speed for the person that left, that you're actually out 8 months of salary at that point in time from the time that you've invested doing the promotion of the spot, the interviewing, the hiring, the onboarding, like all of those things add up, that it takes that long before you even start recouping any of that investment
Mm.
for that employee that you put in place.
Yeah, and I think that's right, but there's also on top of it, I think it's almost harder to quantify, right? Are the opportunity costs. When
Yeah,
the CEO or hiring manager is focused on that, there's other things that might be missed that we can't even quantify. And I think
absolutely.
that's real. But I think what I was going to say that I think is so cool about what you've done and what I have a little spidey sense about why this has been so successful is because you're talking about something I think that we really, I want to say woke up to kind of, but we really kind of became aware of in a whole new way. And that is, where do I belong? I think if we can create businesses or be involved in businesses where the company culture is clear and we can figure out if we belong, that's everything. And it is a human need that we have to feel safe, to feel like we belong, to feel like what we're working on matters, and to feel like our voice inside that work matters. All of that is so critical. And this idea that leadership is literally taking action in this direction, in this vast world of all the things we could choose to be spending our time on, the one resource we don't get back, right? But to spend that resource time with people who are aligned with us, who care about us, and who value what we say and do, it's just everything. And so I think you've really hit this beautiful chord that was so needed inside of all business, whether you're an entrepreneur or someone working for a business, this idea that we can create cultures that attract people we love working with, but that it also serves the greater good in such this massive capacity that when we as humans feel safe and accepted and like we matter, the whole world starts to shift a little bit. It's really cool.
Yeah, I call it building people-centered cultures. I mean, and that really is if you don't forget that people are at the center of what we do. That's
Mhm.
your employees, that's your customers, I mean, people are at the center of all of our worlds. That's where we all combine. And, but when you start looking at the basic human needs, when you
Yeah.
get past shelter and clothing and that kind of thing, belonging is the key. That's what makes our community strong. That's what makes us want to be involved and do different things that we do. And, it's a piece, a lot of times you don't think it's like, oh, do I feel like I belong at my office? It's not something that you ask in an interview, or it's not something that you're even taught to talk about. Like I'm going through business school and everything else. Like nobody said when we were getting ready to go get our job, is like, you need to see if you're going to belong here or not. Like, what does that even mean? And
Mhm.
sometimes you don't even know it till you've been in it. But it was really interesting. I said, because you can walk in places and you feel whether people enjoy being there doing what they're doing or not. And you think about it as a business owner, and how much that impacts how people recommend you to others as well. I'm thinking about take a restaurant, for instance, that a new restaurant's opening and you go try it out and you have a lousy experience. Your wait staff is not up to par. They're over there grumbling about their hours, or they're on their phone not paying attention to, I've ran out of, or for me, sweet tea here in the South, I've ran out of that, an hour ago and I can't finish my meal till I get something else to wash it down. Or, they, it's all about, here's a check, now get out of here. If someone asked me about my experience, am I going to recommend that restaurant?
Mhm.
No. But then you think about other organizations like Chick-fil-A, where it's my pleasure when you go in there and that, they're happy that you came, and they're thankful that you chose them that day. And, around Georgia where I live, that, like that, they're like the icon of culture in the workplace because they teach it from frontline up. Their employees
Mhm.
live it. And they're one of the most highly rated franchises and most highly rated fast food restaurants right now because of the way people feel when they go inside that organization. And you create that experience by making people feel like they belong and that they have a voice and that they're contributing to what's going on and that their values as people align with your values
Yeah.
as an organization. And when we spend that time in the beginning and then we continually do that throughout our careers, then you're just setting yourself up for success as an organization. And you're going to have long term employees that your customers love to interact with, that are going to refer you, your service, your product, whatever it is, to someone else because they want them to have great experiences too.
I
So
love
it
that.
really is a win win for both sets, whether it's the business or the employee.
Yeah, it's wonderful. You're reminding me too. I just read an article about Trader Joe's, funny enough, but you're reminding me like there's a couple of questions they ask at the beginning of any interview just to see if this is the right personality fit for what the customers expect and what the business expects. And it is this really positive, happy, find the happy in any situation kind of a personality. It's just fascinating. And it works. I mean, I feel that way any time I go in there. I'm like, I'm in a better mood and I don't know why. But it's so great. Like this is really powerful stuff and it affects human lives, right? It's just really cool. So how does it feel for you as a human being who's created this work of art to watch it excel like this? Like, what does that feel like? I know we have so many people listening who are in the middle of creating something or writing something or wanting to launch something. What does it feel like to know you really have nailed this message? That's gotta feel like, oh my God.
Awesome. I mean, like it really does because like this was my third book and you know, writing a book doesn't happen in like 2 weeks.
Sure
There's a
doesn't.
lot of work that goes into it and I tell people writing the book is probably the easiest part of the process.
Mm.
Then you hit editing and then you hit marketing and then you hit, all the stages that go in between all that kind of stuff and it was really funny. I think I finished the book and it was 9 months later before it ever came out. And
Wow.
so there's a lot of time that goes into once you finished writing, making you got to have the cover design and you got to have this and it's one of those things that's sitting here thinking I've spent 18 months of my life on this project and like with the first one or the second one is like yeah it did okay it got my name out there it was part of it was a passion project like you want to write your first book I've always wanted to write all my life which is I was journalism and everything else and so I did it but I had never really written for me. I was always
Mhm.
writing about other people and things like that and so getting the first one under my belt my mom was super happy, my dad was super happy, my aunts, my uncles and you look at the sales and you go okay so all five of them bought a book, yay, great for me. So
It's so true though. Oh my gosh. I
it's
always
like
warn people. I'm like, 3 people and a dog see your first thing. And you're like, what?
exactly.
I
And
worked so hard. Yeah.
yeah, so when for this one to actually, I remember sitting on my couch when the publisher called and she said, I have such great news for you. You've hit number one as a bestseller. It's gone international now in 3 countries. And I'm like, wait, I don't know anybody in that country. I can't, it's like they're not buying it because they know me. They're buying it because of the message. And I think that was the moment where it really solidified that, hey, I think this is important. It's not just me thinking it's important. This is something that everybody can relate to and that people are finding value in this message finally. So
Yeah. Oh, that must feel so good. It's interesting. You're reminding me of a phrase. I didn't expect to talk about this today, but you're reminding me of a sort of this experience I think we all have as creators, like whatever it is we're creating to put out into the world, that there comes the moment where you stop recognizing the names of people who are purchasing. And it's like the most amazing moment, right? You're like, oh my God, I don't know who that is. And when that first starts to happen, it's when I say we have this amazing moment. This is why culture, I think, is important too, where we separate ourselves from what we've created and we start to ask, okay, what does the book need me to do next? What does the business need me to do next? What does my business culture need me to do next? And really starting to separate that. And I think there's some magic that gets added in that moment when you're like, I don't know anybody there. Oh my gosh, they're buying it because it's good. That is like, I don't even know how to describe that moment, but it is like this coming of age moment, I think, for creators and business owners when we recognize it's being valued because it's valued. It's not being valued because of my personality or because of me. And that is like the coolest ever.
yeah, it's that validity,
Mm.
like all the work mattered and all the time spent and, all the Facebook post, all the LinkedIn post, everything is like, and then of course we were talking earlier, like, the one person you run into is like, oh, I didn't know you wrote that. And you're like, how could you not know? I've only been talking about it for 2 years now. Like, how do you, that's the only thing I talk about. And so when you start seeing that it has reach and that it can kind of take a life of its own at that point in time, and that the message is so solid that you can start building around the message and not around the product, that's when I think it really, it really took heart to me, is that this is what you need to be talking about. This is what you need to be preaching about. This is what you
Yeah.
need to be putting out there. And how do we make it happen? And how can I help other people make this happen for them?
Oh, gorgeous. I love it. Yeah. And that really is the fun part. I mean, and as we're getting into this, just if we wrap up here, Chellie, when you say this is kind of the thing I want to pass on, this is sort of like how I want to continue to help and teach other people how to be this way in the world almost. I think that's kind of a really cool way to word that. But I know you also have an idea about what leaders need to display. Like, what are the qualities of really awesome leaders? And I love what you said. This doesn't mean the CEO. This doesn't mean someone leading a movement. Like, this is like a human being going through their day leading. What are those qualities that we can look for in ourselves and in for other people?
Yeah. So, if you want people to feel like they belong,
Mm,
the first thing that I think leaders need to do is shut up and listen, because we talk a lot. Yeah, when you're put into that role as a leader in an organization, you're always meeting, you're always doing something, you're putting out information, you're trying to make sure processes are happening, you're trying to make sure reports are getting done, you're doing follow up, you're doing whatever happens, you're out in the community. And sometimes we need to stop and take a step back, and we need to really listen to the people that are at the heart of the organization. Who's the meat of this that's getting it done for us day in and day out? Once you move into certain roles, you kind of lose sight of
mm,
what's happening around you, because it comes with other responsibilities and other people that you're reporting to at that point in time that are expecting other things out of you. And so I think the best thing that leaders can do is actually listen better, and to engage with the people on their team like they're humans. Find out, did they have a great weekend? Find out what's going on in their life. And I don't mean you have to get so personal that somebody's uncomfortable with it, but people want to feel like you know them on a personal level, that you matter to them, that if they're out with a sick kid and you ask them, 2 days later when they get back, I hope they're feeling better, everything going good, nobody else got it in your house yet, right? I mean, you're just acknowledging the fact that we all have other things happening other than what's going on in our jobs.
mm,
And we
mm.
all bring that to work with us, whether it's good, whether it's bad. Sometimes work is an escape. Sometimes it's, I'm just going to take it out on everybody that's around me because I had a sucky day at home too. And so having that conversation and having a team that feels like you can really relate to them and you can relate to life that's happening makes them more willing to have harder conversations with you when they need to. Are there processes that need to change? Everybody is resistant to change. But if they feel like you, as that leader, have listened to them, that you have their back, that you know what matters to them, and you know how things are operating for them, when you approach them with that change, they're less resistant. They're more likely to give it a try and at least make a go of it,
Yeah.
than if you're just throwing something new at somebody who feels like the only time they engage with me is at my twice a year evaluation that I have mid-year and end of year. And so as leaders, I think it's really important for us to emulate the
Mm,
kind of behaviors that we want. So, that open door where people feel like they can come in and talk with you. Something as small as having a conversation with someone in the break room when you pass them. Small talk is, there's an art to small talk where that makes people feel like, oh, they cared about me enough to say hi to me today. Or, just it's little things that you're doing that really, as a leader, will make you stand out. And it
mm.
goes back to that people-centered approach that we're talking about, where they
Yeah.
feel like you as a person matters to them.
Mm. Love it. I love it. I guess one of the most important things we can do is I see you. I see you. I hear you. You matter. My favorite.
Mhm.
Chellie, thank you so much for spending time with us today. If someone's listening and they're like, oh my dear heavens, I need more of her in my life, where can people head to learn more about you and take advantage? I believe you also have a free ebook as well. Yeah.
Yes, I do. And I think you're going to link to it in the
Yeah.
show notes and everything. And so I call that one flying solo. So it's for the single leader inside the organization. It's that person that's leading from the cubicle. This is how you can get this movement started so that everybody wants to sit around you and be part of your team, because you really can infect an organization in a positive way by creating, have somebody on the other side of the building going, I wonder what's going over there on their team. They're having so much fun together.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. We should enjoy what we do 90,000 hours out of our lives. And
Seriously, right?
yes,
Yes.
seriously. So that'll be in the show notes and my website, chellephillips.com. And then of course I'm on LinkedIn and all the other platforms. And I do love to engage and have conversations. So if you comment on a post and have a question, more than likely you're going to get an answer back from me.
Chellie, thank you so much for spending time with us today. It was just wonderful to get to have this conversation and talk about the humanity behind business and company culture and leadership, also important. Thank you again. I hope the girlfriends love it.
Me too, Sarah. Thanks for having me.